Hey guys, welcome to Cricket Fanatics Magazine. I'm here with another exclusive interview. I'm going to be talking to Shukri Conrad. Now, as you guys may know, the new S under 19 coach. And for me, when I heard the news, I was very excited because as you guys know on the channel, that I follow under 19s quite closely. I have been for the quite couple of years. And now that Shukri's in charge, just based on so many things that I've heard from regards to players that have worked with him, I really thought that I had to get him on the show. So welcome to the show, Shukri. I'm really excited to speak to you.
Yeah,
I
thanks,
wonder,
Khalid. Yeah, look forward to having a good chat with you. Yeah.
yeah. So let me start with your time as S under 19 coach. So recently, you guys did something quite phenomenal, which I thought was interesting. That you did this the step camp, obviously preparing players or looking for talent for the next World Cup. Can you just give me some insight into that? Obviously, you went to Pretoria and to Port Elizabeth. How did those camps go, and what was so integral about those camps?
Yeah. So firstly, the reason behind the camps were quite simple. I'm starting off on a real clean sheet, so to speak. So um, obviously, having been involved at the national academy level, I know the landscape of the under 19s, but I don't particularly know the players. So it gave me an opportunity to get closer to the scouts, who do a really good job, and then also to have a good look firsthand at potentially what players we have available for the next World Cup, which is scheduled for 2022 in the West Indies. So essentially, this camp was for under 17s. It was exclusively for guys that are eligible for the World Cup. We then had
Wow.
an inland camp, as you rightly say, up in Pretoria, where we had the Knights, Lions, and Titans boys. And then we had another camp down in PE that was for the coastal boys, being Durban, the Dolphins, the Warriors, and the Cobras. And yes, it was certainly eye-opening for me. I've always held the view that we have talent in abundance, and that was pretty clear over the duration of the two camps. Talent to burn. It's really about making sure that we harness this talent properly. It's about ensuring that we get proper plans in place for these young boys. And when they come to camps, that there's real good learnings taking place, And I was very fortunate in that I assembled a really good bunch of guys around me in consultants. On the batting front, I had Neil McKenzie work with the boys. I had Rory Kleinveld and Vinnie Barnes with the quick bowlers. Paul Adams with the spinners. Malebongwe Maketa was on hand. I had Creer van Wyk to work with the keepers and the field and act as a fielding consultant in Pretoria, and I had Ezra Poole down in PE. So yeah, all in all, I was really happy with what came out of those camps, and judging by the responses I got from the boys and the scouts, they were exceptionally happy, and so that augurs well. That gets us off on the right footing, and we can start building from here.
So is it more about testing the talent rather and testing their skill levels rather than teaching them new things?
It's like threefold. It's identifying the talent,
Okay.
and it's by no means a closed shop. We've got 2 years to a World Cup, and players develop differently, especially at these ages. But it gave me a really good idea of what to look out for, who is on the radar. I'd be very surprised if the bulk of the squad that boards a plane to the West Indies in 2 years' time doesn't come from the boys we had at the camp. But like I said, it's not a closed shop. There are going to be other platforms, other opportunities. There's a Cubs week coming up. Next year, hopefully, things will be back to the old normal rather than the new normal, where cricket weeks can happen, and we'll be scouring the land across every part of the country, really, to ensure that nobody falls through the cracks. And a lot's going to depend on the schools that I'm going to engage. So I'm hoping to establish really good relationships with the schools, with the hubs and the RPCs, even with private coaches. I think they play an integral part in all of this as well. And then also the identified players, how to get them um, upskilled properly. We have a good idea of what sort of conditions we going to encounter at the World Cup. But there are also tours beforehand, and I think we need to start getting things right. Yes, we want to develop players. Yes, we want to coach them and ensure that they learn the right stuff. But at the same time, we want to win as well. There needs to be a feel good factor about our cricket again. And if we can start developing really hardened, tough cricketers, smart cricketers, then I'll be really happy.
Yeah. Because I mean, the one thing that stood out to me when I spoke to guys that you've worked with at the academies, of course, like I've spoken to, like for example, Matthew Briersky and Reina van Tonder and Marcus Ackerman, all have said wonderful things about you.
Yeah,
With
Vinny
regards to
Bonds will
how,
tell you they my love. Vinny Bonds will tell you they my love children. So you've picked the right ones.
yeah, the one thing that stood out to me is that they told me that it's not necessarily that you help them with regards to their skill levels, because I mean, clearly they are talented cricketers, but from a mental point of view, you took their game to the next level. So how that's why I was so excited when I heard that you're coming in as S19 coach. How much of the mental side of the game is so important for these youngsters? What is important about it at this particular stage of their career to work on their mental game?
Look, yeah, it's the mental side, but it's more it's an integrated approach. So it's the mental side coupled with the technical side, and I'll work by a very simple philosophy that um, I'd like to coach players their technique and not a technique. So
Mm.
whatever ability and talent and skill set they have, I've got to make sure that I improve that skill set, not necessarily try and break it down and take out the coaching manual and say, right, this is how it's supposed to be done. So I think that's really my mantra that I operate from. And it's about allowing the players to be who they are. And we need to embrace that diversity in our country. And I know that sounds like a cliche, but
Mm.
everybody brings something different to the party. I mean, those three names that you mentioned, Bredo is as an exciting a talent as you can get. But if you look at his performance today, in a losing cause, he carried his bat, 77 not out of 200 and odd balls. So that'll be magical for his career. That he's not only a one-trick pony that walks out there and flays attacks and adds the flair component to the game. So there's massive growth that takes place through their experiences. So we try and build on their skill sets. Reinhard van Tonder is as gritty and as hard as a young cricketer as you get, but he's also expanded his game now. He probably arrived at the academy as a I wouldn't say one dimensional because he was never that, but he needed to be unshackled a bit for him to realize his full potential, and he's done that. Marcus Ackerman. I'm mentioning players' names which I don't really enjoy doing, but because you
Yeah,
mentioned these guys' names, Marcus is a different type of player. He's going to cost you games every now and again. He's going to throw it away. But if we can allow Marcus to be Marcus and win us 6 or 7 out of 10 games, then he's doing his job. As long as their thought processes are fine, and
yeah,
that's the one thing that I'll always ask a player, like, is what were you thinking? And if your thought processes are fine, then the execution we can always work on. We can throw balls and you can work on execution. But for me, it's
yeah,
about, yes, the mental side you talk of, but it's becoming smarter cricketers and backing your ability. I know that's also a cliche,
yeah.
um, but really allowing the players to be who they are. And we've got a vast array of talented boys in the country.
Yeah, I mean this obviously this interview is not going to be about slating anybody at all. But the difference what happened when I saw Otis Gibson come into the job is initially, and he spoke about the attacking brand of cricket that he wanted to play with South Africa, and then I sat there and I watched the way things unfolded, and then I listened to Owen Morgan a couple of last season when he came here and after that tour, and he said he wanted to play an attacking attractive, smart brand of cricket. And the word that stood out to me was smart. And the fact that you're mentioning that is incredible, because it's that side of the game that this takes it to the next level, to be able to know how to adapt your game to situations. So obviously with your CV, I'm not going to mention it. People can go Google it if they want to know it. But you've worked with a lot of great players. What makes the great players from just the good players? What differentiates the two?
Um, I think the great players do because there's still a place for the basics. Eh? I think the great players just do the basics more often than the ordinary players. You talk about summing up situations. I operate from a slightly different perspective. I like to look at what the conditions determine. So the conditions for me determine how I can play. So if it's a really good wicket for batting, we might be 2 or 3 down for spit. Doesn't mean that we've now got to start blocking because the situation says I've got to block. This is where, if the conditions are good, you've still got to back your skill set to get through that tricky period by not allowing the situation to dictate and determine how you play. If you get onto a wicket where it's tough for batting, then you've got to adjust accordingly. You can't now go and play the laissez-faire way and say, well, that's how I play. That's the soft option. So for me, it's all about summing up conditions, and that is coupled to being a smart cricketer. The same for the bowlers. Bowlers need to work out very quickly what sort of lines they need to bowl, what sort of lengths they need to bowl on certain wickets, and practice those skill sets. And yes, so to answer your question, what do the great players do? What sets them apart? I think they sum up the conditions a lot quicker. They work out their game a lot quicker, and then they do the basics a lot better and a lot more often than the ordinary player.
That's awesome. So, if you can give a small message to the players out there, maybe those guys that are going to be pushing for those World Cup spots, or maybe guys that are way before that you might see in a couple of years' time, a message to them with regards to their cricket and how they can approach things going forward.
Look, I mean, I think you're going to hear the same thing from many coaches: is that there's no no shortcut to success. But I want cricket that I don't want to sound like hopefully an ex-US president, but yes, we want to make South Africa great again, but we want to do it playing cricket that's a lekker brand, if you know what I'm saying. So whatever you feel comfortable doing, coupled with the necessary coaching bits that can add to your repertoire, I want players to go out and play like that, play lekker cricket, play it tough, express yourself. And these are all cliches, but having a real good understanding of what playing with expressive or being expressive when you play, getting a full understanding of it. Work hard. I mean, those are all basic things, but let us not all be cloned into playing a certain way. There are many ways to skin this cat, and there's a reason it's called a batting lineup, is that everybody brings something different to it. There's a reason it's called a bowling attack, in that everybody brings something different. It's not called 7 batters and 4 bowlers. And that's the simple message that I want to give to young cricketers is go out there, play cricket like you want to play it. Work hard at your game at the same time, and learn from the top players. I think our young players need to watch a lot more cricket. We pretty much brought up on the instant stuff. We like the highlights channel. I think it's channel 200 on SuperSport, where you switch that on and then you see all the wickets and you see all the runs, the 6s and 4s, and you say, well, that's how it's done. But yeah, learn from the best. Have a look at the top players, and then trust what you're doing, and just go out there and have a hell of a lot of fun doing it, man. It's still a sport, whether we like it or not, and it has to be fun. It has to be fun, but it will be tough at the same time.
Yeah, I just want to ask you one last question, and that is, With regards to the longer format, I didn't ask you about that. How are you going to be preparing these kids for the longer formats? Because they don't really get an opportunity at school level really to test themselves. When they come, sometimes when these kids come to 4-day cricket and they get quite shocked and they see that the longer format of the game quite soon. How will you be
Yeah,
preparing
yeah.
them for that?
Look, I think 50 over cricket is not far removed from the longer format. There's still enough opportunities for you to build an innings and
Okay.
get hundreds and bowlers to bowl spells. But this is going to take an effort from everybody involved in South African cricket. So if there are players with ability, I'm certainly going to engage senior provincial coaches around the country, franchise coaches around the country for us to get these young players involved somehow, be it at
Mm.
nets, be it the odd game in the senior provincial team. Because, like I say, I think we all need to be in this together. We need to start taking on board that our under 19 setup is as important a part of the pipeline, for lack of a better word, is as important as any other stage in the players' development, and for us not to be scared to expose these young cricketers. If they good enough, they're old enough, to quote another cliche.
Mm.
So how are we going to help them? We're gonna try and get them involved in senior provincial setups. Hopefully, in time to come, once things have settled down, we can have another 3-day competition, um, where we get these guys involved, get them involved in their respective academies around the country, and start integrating them into and get them playing club cricket. I think club cricket is a massive learning space where they play with men, and it hardens you, and you sit down and you listen, a lot more than you speak, which is an important part as well. So those are all aspects that I'm mulling around in my head, and hopefully I can bring to fruition in the not too distant future.
Cool. Thanks a lot. That's all we need from you today, Shukri. Thanks a lot for coming on the show,
All the
and
best.
good luck for the future.
Thanks, man. I look forward to it. Cheers, Khalid.